Hey guys, welcome back to Ultimate SNS. I hope everyone is having a wonderful Wednesday. Quick reminder, we have our members live stream tonight. It will be our first members live stream, and we're going to be covering a lot of the materials we've been posting up with the Genesis cover-up series that we're doing. So make sure you tune in for that. That's going to be at 7 o'clock Central Time, so hope to see everyone there. Now, as far as what's happening locally around here, obviously we've been looking at the inflation prices. We posted up some pictures yesterday in one of our videos about the way the status of the stores are kind of looking, and it's really discouraging in some ways, but it's nice to be able to look online and you can find like presidential announcements and things. So here's one of the things that we had that we were actually able to find in response to our president, making us feel a little more at ease.
The receptionist, the salon, they may be going to the saloon. I don't know.
So I don't know about y'all, but that really puts my mind to rest. I don't really know what saloons or salons has to do with anything, but that's what he had to say on that. I think it's important that we do take our president into consideration whenever we're doing our prayers and things like that. Whether you like the guy or not, how you voted, and things like that, we should be praying for the leader of our country, that at least maybe he can finally start receiving some guidance and things. When it comes right down to it, it's going to be a situation where it doesn't really matter too much who's in office. We know what the prophecy says about the end of the age, and that's where we are coming up upon. And we're seeing a lot of things line up with that. So again, we're going to look and see what our president has to say with that.
That's a serious question, right? Is it acceptable to me? Come on.
Again, very reassuring. It's really nice to be able to find these types of clips and stuff, guys, because it's really nice to be able to look back to a year ago, a few months ago, or even a week ago, to be able to make sure that we can put our minds and our hearts at ease that the guy is on the case. And when you look at this man, you can tell that he is 100% dedicated to each of us as Americans. I mean, just look at the seriousness here.
Well, look.
Now, with all the comedy over, guys, let's get back to the actual show. So we have finally stopped raining. It's great. It's been nice to have that rain to really boost the garden and stuff. But unfortunately, what that rain does is you don't get a lot of pollinators moving around in these types of rainstorms and stuff like that. So today went out to the garden, and there's a lot of new growth, which is great. Cucumber vines are even getting bigger. We moved a lot of the newer planting that we did with the seeds and stuff after they popped. We moved them to the vining area, and they are getting probably about 8 to 9 inches tall now. They are getting ready to start climbing, which is great to see that. Our yellow zucchini is actually taking off really nice. I expect to start seeing blooms on that probably within, I don't know, maybe another 2, maybe 3 weeks on that. So that's going to be nice to really start adding that extra stuff in. This will be a new type of a vegetable for me. I called it yellow zucchini. It's actually called golden zucchini, and they are supposed to get around 18 inches long, but they shouldn't get as big around as the Black Beauty zucchini that we get. As y'all remember some of the videos we showed of that stuff gets huge. But since we've had this rainstorm and all that, we haven't had a lot of stuff pollinated out there. So I went out this morning and did some hand pollination on that, just to kind of give them an extra boost, because I didn't know what the rain was going to do today. Down here in this area, when they're calling for a nice clear day, expect rain. When they're calling for rain, you can go ahead and expect it's going to be really hot that day, and typically it doesn't even rain. I don't know why or what's happening with our weather reports here, but this close to the Gulf, obviously I don't think you can really gauge what the weather is going to do, because a wind shift, temperature drops, temperature fluctuations, it can cause storms and stuff. So you can't really blame the meteorologist for that type of stuff if you move to an area. So we showed a lot of the videos that was coming in from the Walmarts in the areas where I went out and took some photos of the shelves. And there was a question that was posed, is why not just move from this area? We'll understand that the food crisis is not just going to be in Florida or in Oklahoma or in, wherever you're at and you're seeing this. What's going to happen is that is going to slowly spread into all of the states. And we need to realize that even if the food remains available, even if it's at a lower availability, or maybe even a reduced assortment of it, we're seeing the pricing go up. So it's real important that, one, if you hadn't been prepping, that you go ahead and get started on that. It is not called hoarding, it is called prepping, because if you're having struggles when you're going to the grocery store today with the pricing, imagine what it's going to be in a month or 2 months, or even by the end of November. So they're actually saying by November, they don't know if there's going to be any turkeys available and things like that, because of what had happened with the H5N1, and that is still happening across the country. One of the things I notice is when an outbreak of something happens, or there's what they call newsworthy, they'll hit it for a little bit, but when the numbers start to dwindle down on it, then the mainstream media doesn't really mess with it too much anymore. And the same for even YouTubers and stuff, because it's no longer the hot thing. But what you need to do is keep an eye on those situations, and you can still see where the reports are coming in that this is going to be a situation that's going to continue to grow worse. When you have things like the United Nations, who you don't usually hear from, but they have things such as the World Food Program, and they're announcing that people need to make sure that they have 3 to 6 months of food set back. I would double those numbers. That's me personally. Depending on the size of your family, it's going to be harder to do that, but you may have to get to a situation later on where you're going to need to ration your foods, ration even water supplies and stuff. So understand, when it comes to city water, a lot of that stuff can be hacked. Unfortunately, we have seen cases of that in the past, not necessarily in this particular state or this area here, but they have uncovered different things throughout the last year or so, where our wastewater treatments and our fresh water for your tap water and stuff have been hacked in the past. They've actually found where the chemical tanks, they have these automatic valves that automatically mix by certain times and stuff like that, certain values within the ppm. And what has happened in the past is people have actually been able to hack into that, and if they had not caught it, it could cause really bad sicknesses because of the chemicals that are used to treat our water. So understand, it's better to boil your water, or to put it through these different types of filters that are available now. And I think one of the most well known are probably those Sawyer filters and stuff. They are kind of pricey, especially if you put it on your house. So those are some things to look at. But as far as like a good backup, but if you have well water, something to remember as well. So we have well water here. It's a 190-foot well, which is great. Now I don't exactly know how that works, being right here on the coast, but that is the depth that that well is sitting at, and we have pretty good water. But one of the things you really need to realize is all it takes is groundwater contaminations, which is happening across not just this country but around the world. They had a statistics that came out, and they were talking about the percentage of the water, which is fresh water or potable water you would call, or salt water, and about a third of the world's supply is fresh water, and then only about 12% of that is actually considered non-contaminated. You could drink it straight from its source, and most of that is going to be within your wells and things like that. And with all these dumpings and things like that that we're seeing across the world and across the country, people are talking about wanting to reduce environmental impact. But understand, that's for you and me when there's money being handed in for these chemical companies to dump. Politicians, they'll take the money and then they'll contaminate it, and then they'll turn around and they will blame their constituents, the people who voted for them. And that seems to be what we have happening. I think it's really messed up that they make the money off of that, and then we catch the the flack on it. But that is just unfortunately the way that the world is when you have a ruling class and a peasant class, is basically where we're headed in this society today. So I think it's important that you are getting prepared. So it's easy to sit back and say, well, that's called hoarding and you shouldn't do that because that causes shortages and things like that. When I go to a store and there's not much stuff on the shelves, I am going to buy what I can and what I can afford immediately, because I'm not going to sit around and wait like what happened with the toilet paper shortages and stuff, where people are freaking out because they don't have toilet paper. And there was literally people, I don't know if you have Thrifty Nickels in your area, they usually give a free newspaper up at the corner of any gas station, and those were being like, people were just raiding the whole thing and never using newspapers for toilet paper in this area. So one of the things that I went into is I went and bought these bidet systems and put on the toilets around here, because that's going to reduce the amount of toilet paper you use. It's going to help make sure you're actually quite a bit cleaner. Now for us as Americans, it is not a sensation that we ourselves are used to having with the bidet, but I will tell you, since we put them in, once you get used to them, it just becomes part of a natural system. You don't have to go out and buy $2,000 or $3,000 toilets to put in. What you can do is you can get for 20 or 30 bucks an attachment that goes onto your toilet and hooks into the water line. And I would recommend doing that because they're talking about more of these shortages and things. And understand parts of the shortage is from people not wanting to go back to work for these companies that just laid them off right away. And another part of it is because our shipping industry is basically really hurting right now. Our trucking industry and stuff is hurting really bad because of the diesel prices that have been going up. And then there are the situations where it's there's always excuses for it, and unfortunately, but what matters to us is that we see the availability going down and we see these shortages and stuff to happen, and many of us have actually experienced those shortages, and we decided we're not going to be caught in a situation where we're off guard again. So we have began prepping. For many of us in the community, we've been prepping for a while, but we have really started to step up our game as well. Instead of just prepping back essentials and stuff and basic foods and things like that, we've actually went and turned to more of a sustainable lifestyle. Now understand, it can be a challenge to be able to get to a point where you don't have to go to a store at all. In fact, it would take a while to get to that point. But what you can do is you can start growing enough of your own foods, whether it's in the form of gardens, fruit trees and stuff. And understand, if you go and you buy a fruit tree today, even if it's the really large ones, you're looking at a couple of years, potentially longer if it's a smaller tree, before it will actually start producing fruit. So take that into mind when you're making your purchases and things like that. Now, I'm not saying don't buy those things, because yes, eventually it's going to help. But when you get to fruit trees, you're probably going to want to go out to a nursery and get a large tree, because if you're planting from seed with a fruit tree, you could be looking at anywhere between 5 to 10 years, maybe even longer, depending on the type of tree, before it actually starts putting out fruit. So something to think about. Then we also have like our quail, which is giving us meat sources. It gives us a ton of eggs, but the quail are more for the meat sources now that the chickens are actually laying. Now, we still do eat a lot of quail eggs, mainly because of the value of the bad cholesterol that can be in a chicken egg. They do not have a bad cholesterol level in quail eggs at all. In fact, all the cholesterol that is in a quail egg actually is good cholesterol, and that will reduce your bad cholesterol levels as well. This is things that I had read, and we went ahead and started doing that here, and both Dad and I both have actually seen where raising these quail eggs and stuff, or these quail for the eggs, has actually really stabilized glucose levels. It's actually been helping a lot with the cholesterol levels and things, and been able to cut back on some prescriptions and stuff at the doctor's recommendation based off of what we've been seeing. And I think that that is very important, guys, that you talk to your doctor, your physician, whoever it is that you're seeing, and they will check and see if what you're doing is working, if you need to add to it, change it a little bit or whatever. So, again, guys, I'm going to encourage you to get food. Regardless of what other people say, as far as, they may call you a hoarder and things like that. But understand, when these situations come up, and then the media comes in and it's okay, but there's going to be a shortage. We usually are sitting back and we continue with what we're doing. What the other people who are calling us hoarders do is they go out and they'll buy 3 or 4 buggies full of the items that they're saying is fixing to go out. They will then bring it home, but then they will then put it on Craigslist and other selling points and try to make a big bundle off of it. And that's why a lot of people will tell you, no, don't be doing, stocking and prepping and stuff. Don't be hoarding back food and supplies, because when the shortages come out on the mainstream media, they want to be able to run in, buy 3 or 4 buggies full of stuff, and then you'll see these families that are actually lacking, and then they have to pay 2 or 3 times what it is. And that's actually illegal whenever it's a state of emergency declared. But we've seen a lot of that kind of stuff happening down here. Hurricane Michael happening and stuff. People would go in and they would buy as much bottled water as they could, and then they would turn around and they would sell it. And one of the things that really got me is there was a lot of the churches and stuff, and they were giving out free cases of water and different things like that. And people were going and stocking their cars up and then turning around and then selling that stuff on like Craigslist and different types of sources and stuff, which is really bad to do that, guys. It really is. You want to talk about, people that are preppers, calling them hoarders and things, but these people that like to run in and get the free stuff from these different types of groups that are actually giving out free food and free water, and then they'll turn right around and just sell it to make a profit. I disagree with that 100%. But if that is your situation where that's the only way that you can prep, that's totally up to you. I would recommend doing a garden long before you start hitting the food banks and things at churches, and then just using that as your preps. That's how I feel about it. But I can't tell you what you can and can't do. I can't tell you what you should or shouldn't do. You know what's best for your family in that regard. But think about this: if you're able to put that food back as a prep, there are people who actually need that food now to be able to eat it. So I would recommend, if you start seeing a lot of your stuff going out of date, one, you could cycle it into your food, or two, you could take it to food banks so that it doesn't go out of date and doesn't go to waste. There are some preppers who actually keep stuff. They will keep their food right up to the expiration date and then just throw it all away, which I think is very wasteful. So you need to make sure that you're keeping stuff close to the expiration date. And if it gets too close, then maybe it's time to start giving that to the needy in the population. That way you're passing that blessing forward. But again, those are my ideas as far as the way that I would live my life. Everyone have a wonderful day. I'm going to get off of here. Again, one more reminder: tonight, 7 o'clock Central Time, we're having our members live stream. So can't wait to see you there.